Hi everybody, this is Dino from Prehistoric Facts. This is an answering questions episode, so let's get right to it, shall we? Patrick from Ohio, he actually asked, are Ceratopsians warm-blooded? That's a little bit of a good question. Let's see. Considering that theropods are pretty much, I would say pretty much warm-blooded, sauropods would probably be in between. I think hadrosaurs could be in towards maybe towards warm-blooded, but actually probably could actually still be in between warm-blooded and cold-blooded. I think Ceratopsians are actually kind of going to be pretty close to warm-blooded, considering that they actually have nearly the same probably actually kind of almost consistent body temperature of any dinosaurs, considering that they do live in the more like colder conditions, and so that would make a lot of sense if they actually are willing to actually survive in colder climates. I mean, hadrosaurs could actually be the same way as well, because if you're in between warm and cold-blooded, I don't think you could survive in colder climates, and so that actually makes a little bit more sense, considering that you probably might need to be warm-blooded in order to actually keep your body temperature at a much higher rate, is because you need to actually survive in the cold. And that's why mammals are actually warm-blooded, is because mammals are actually more likely to survive in colder conditions, but it also will depend on like how much fat reserves you actually have and all that sorts of stuff. So I would say Ceratopsians would actually be pretty close to warm-blooded. Alright, Brendan from Morris, New York. My question is, how sophisticated the brain of Carcharodontosaurids and other Carnosaurians, and how does this lead to birds? Well, Carcharodontosaurids are pretty much actually going to be probably actually right in the middle of say where dinosaur brain evolution is actually kind of taking place. When we actually look at the Carcharodontosaurids, they don't have a very advanced brain like the Troodontids or the Dromaeosaurs, or even Ornithomimids, and also they don't have a much more sophisticated brain than Tyrannosaurs. So they're actually a little bit below the Tyrannosaurs, and so that would actually make a lot. And considering that they actually do have large heads, and also but even though that doesn't count for brain size, is if you're large, just because you're large doesn't mean you actually have a really big brain. Elephants are actually kind of the exception to that, and even whales. And so when we actually look at Carnosaurians, including the Carcharodontosaurids, they don't have that big of a cerebrum. That's the part of the brain that is associated with kind of actually for more likely for problem solving, and also to actually understand the senses understand your senses, pretty much like sense of smells, sense of hearing, sense of sight. And when we look at Carcharodontosaurids and Carnosaurians, is that we actually see that they actually do have a good sense of smell. Their sense of hearing is actually not that bad, and their sense of sight is actually not as great as, say, the Tyrannosaurs or even the Troodontids or the Dromaeosaurs. So the Coelurosaurians would actually have better eyesight than the Carcharodontosaurids or Carnosaurians, and so that actually will make sense, considering that the Coelurosaurs are actually pretty much leading the adaptation towards birds. Whereas Carnosaurians, they're actually distant relatives, but they don't really have the sophistication as what Coelurosaurians would actually ultimately have. And so that would actually suggest that the Coelurosaurians are actually more likely to evolve into birds, whereas the Carnosaurians, they're distant relatives, but they don't actually have the same features as the Coelurosaurians. and so they'll actually do fine hunting, but their sense of sight is actually not as great as the Ceratopsians. And so the reason why their brain might actually be a little bit smaller than the Tyrannosaurs is just because they don't really have that sensory capabilities to actually process that information very quickly. So they were more likely to rely on instinct a lot more than actually biological thinking. But even though dinosaurs wouldn't actually be able to process like anything that you would actually throw a curve to them, they would actually more likely rely a little bit more on instinct than anything else. But if you actually try to give like if you try to give a Carnosaur like say a maze to actually walk through, it's not really going to actually figure out where to go and how to actually find the patterns. It's actually more likely going to ignore the maze and actually just go around it. And so that's pretty much what it's going to do. And when we actually look at probably like say like dromaeosaurs and pterodontids, if you give them a maze, they would probably do a little bit better, considering that they would solve certain parts of the maze, and they will go like, okay, this is a dead end, I'll just go this way, that sort of thing. But like with mammals actually will able to actually go through maze very quickly, whereas like some certain dinosaurs, they would probably either just bulldoze through that maze just by running over the walls, or otherwise they wouldn't actually have anything to do with it. And so intellectually wise, they're not as smart as like say like more like modern birds or even certain types of mammals. And so you can actually go probably towards closer to being like a domestic pet, so that's pretty much what they're actually going to be in terms of intellectually wise. Alright, that's it for now. Now next week will actually be a special episode, so let me know what kind of prehistoric animal you want me to talk about, mainly vertebrates. So you can do that by going on my Prehistoric Facts Facebook page, on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Let me know what kind of prehistoric animals you want me to talk about. You can also email them to me at dinocris71@gmail.com. But you can also still send me questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life by emailing me at dinocris71@gmail.com, or as go on my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you can actually post your questions in the comment section or even post them on the wall. In the Facebook page, remember, keep your questions short to the point. You can also follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. That's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Also, take care of people around you, and also for younger people out there, make sure to listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivation you can have for good education. It's very important to have good education. So with a good education, you get a good job in the future. Alright, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys next week.